frontline workers by coming here today to announce your proposed One Seattle budget. Thank you. Go Bulldogs.
Thank you very much, Mildred, for that kind introduction. What she neglected to say was that we grew up together and went to Garfield together, and I know you're thinking what I'm thinking. Why do I look so much older than Mildred? But she and her family have been dear friends. Thank you for joining us here today. I first want to begin by expressing my great appreciation to the members of the City Council that are here. Sitting here with us, the City Attorney Ann Davison, for Mildred for that kind introduction, and perhaps most importantly, the city employees that are joining us too, including those who work every single day right here at Charles Street. Thank you for all you do for our city. So, when I took office at the beginning of this year, I challenged all of us to help move our city government in a new direction, to commit to collaboration, innovation, to break down silos and to build up new ideas, to focus on getting the basics right and to set an example for our neighbors to become ambassadors with us for our city. I asked all of you to embrace a One Seattle vision where we work to find common ground, to reject divisiveness, where we strive to bring people together. It was simply as simple as that we lead with equity, with kindness, inclusion, humility, and dare I say a little humor to even laugh at one another through this journey together. And it's clear quite candidly that this team in front of us, this team, our collective team, are up to the task. You stepped up to it. You stepped to the plate, and the residents of Seattle are seeing early results. There's progress to be celebrated for sure, but we all know we have so much more work to do. So we're at this location today at Charles Street, our vehicle maintenance facility, because of what it means to the core services, to the basics of the city to keep our city moving. I said moving and grooving, but they took it out of the speech. Because on any given day, there's about 150 city employees, staff working here, drivers, operators, firefighters, police officers, fleet mechanics, auto body repair and painting specialists, metal fabricators, and towing specialists. These professionals, this highly skilled staff delivers maintenance and repair services to many of our over 4,000 vehicles in the city's fleet, and they come from different departments. They have unique specialties. They're united, however, by a common mission to serve the public. It's quite honestly, again, as simple as that. That's what our One Seattle approach is all about. So many of these workers are here with us today, and I'd ask that we acknowledge them and give them a round of applause for their great work. Thank you. You got a longer applause than I got when I started my speech, but that's okay. So as we develop this budget, the One Seattle budget that I'll present to you today, our guiding principles was how best to meet the urgent needs of our communities and empower our employees to deliver the essential services to our residents, because they expect it, they demand it every day. If you're elected to office, you know they expect it and they demand it. Much has been said that these documents are moral documents. They define who is the city, what we think is right or what's wrong. We talk about equity and equality. When I was a young kid, back in the dinosaur ages, my mother and father, they'd give my brother and I an allowance. And my older brother is a couple of years older than me, and none of my family members in that family are alive today, so I could say things that are partly true. But this is very true. They're looking down on me. That we'd get this allowance every 2 weeks, and many of you know my mom and dad work for the city, and so the problem with that allowance is my brother, who was several years older, he always got more than me. He got a couple more bucks than me, and I didn't like that. And I would say, I think we should be treated equal, Mom. I'm almost his size. I was sort of a bigger kid, but he was several years older than me. He was in his teens, and she says, no, He has more needs than you. He deserves more money than you. That's equity. I didn't like it. I wasn't trying to hear that because I wanted to be treated equally. As my wife and I, who's joined me with me today, when we began having our kids, I gave them the equity speech too. They weren't hearing it as well. But this document, we have to recognize that some communities are underserved, and that when we embrace equity, our investment strategy has to reflect that, historical practices. So in my first State of the City address in February, I shared concerns about the city's worsening revenue gap, an issue that was years in the making, a result of an increase in spending that sort of outpaced our revenues. There's no one to blame for that. This is just the reality of our city's situation. And since then, our entire country, as many of you know, have experienced new bouts of economic uncertainty and instability. Inflation and other issues have furthered this challenge, and we continue to see the ambiguity in our economic forecast. This makes it tough to examine a budget. So in the face of these economic conditions, our responsibility to our residents is magnified as they continue to feel the strain as well. So we faced a $140 million revenue gap. I have to repeat that, a $140 million revenue gap. We made commitments to take a hard look at the budget, to be disruptors, to disrupt past practice. We look to bend the curve of spending and prioritize essential city services and urgent needs of our community. So we closely scrutinized the work we do. We looked for efficiencies and found savings wherever we could. We used revenue from the payroll expense tax to balance the budget. We'll talk a little bit more about that. This was a necessary decision to prevent harmful reductions in services. But above all else, we learned the most by listening. The council, listening to the council, listening to community members. We worked collaboratively. We built in a partnership with, I believe, our community and our council that to some level was unprecedented. We heard from people who provide and use our services every single day. We were able to recognize what helps people do their job and what helps meet the needs of all of our neighbors, housed and unhoused. So through this process, I'm proud to say that we're able to propose a budget that sustains high-quality city services that our residents expect. It provides critical staffing and makes smart funding decisions to address our emergent needs, the needs of the hour. So after 2 very long pandemic years, so many challenges we've all faced, we stand at this pivotal moment in our professional history and our personal history. At the intersection of change and challenge, we know the investments we make in this budget can chart Seattle's course for years to come. We are redefining the city together. So to my fellow city employees, we have to rise to this opportunity. We have to step in the face of difficulty and set the example for our residents to show them our resilience and our commitment to progress, our strength. We believe this budget empowers you to act on that very simple mission. Now, to the department heads who are here, who chose to be here, well, actually, you sure are required to be here, but another story. We asked you to make some tough decisions. Now, some of you complained and then you smiled, and some of you smiled and then you complained, and some of you got mad and then you smiled. I'll take a smile anyway that I can get it, but the fact of the matter is you all stepped up. You worked with your employees, you looked at our vision, you looked at what was needed, and you stepped up. We believe this budget, again, will help uplift all Seattle communities, showing in the face of hardship that our bias towards action, our commitment to service, our desire to help others will shine through. So let me get into some specifics. Delivering public safety is our core charter responsibility. So as a city, that's what we're founded to do. But too often residents feel unsafe on the streets. So I believe that in One Seattle, every person has an absolute right to safety, no matter where you live, where you go to school, who you are. I pledge to make the investments necessary to fund public safety services at the level our residents expect and demand. This budget accomplishes that goal. Now, we've seen short-term improvements responding to many types of crimes in areas where we've implemented what is known as emphasis police and increased services, but to ensure effective long-term public safety and undoing long-standing issues, we know we need additional resources and staffing in all categories of our first responders. That's why my proposal calls for a 50% increase in next year's Seattle Fire Department recruitment class. Thank you for joining us here today, Fire Department. Now, this investment will address the staffing shortages and will reduce the record overtime costs. The fire department needs the staffing to increase to help keep themselves safe and protect every neighborhood. So I'm proud of our fire service. It's ranked in the top 1% of departments across our country. It is the only fire service in the state of Washington to be ranked in Protection Class 1. That's the highest possible rating. Now, our budget funds the comprehensive police recruitment and retention plan as well. This will bring to scale efforts to hire not only more officers, but the kind of officers who reflect our commitment to equitable policing. This plan looks at innovative programs, modern recruitment, tactics, education, family supports, incentives for new recruits and lateral transfers. We need to make every effort to bring officers here and reverse the staffing crisis that impacts everything we want to do with policing in Seattle. Now, candidly, we know it's not just dollars and incentives that will bring more police officers to Seattle. It's making this a place where they want to be, where we all want to be, changing the narrative, ensure Seattle is where we lead with service, a city where we acknowledge the good work our officers do, a city where we can have transparent conversations with our officers where they may fail, officers to help them earn our trust in communities and the confidence through their day-to-day actions. And for the first time in over 2 years, we will have a permanent police chief, and Chief Adrian Diaz. Now, supporting victims and those in need is also an essential city service and a key component, a key step toward complete public safety. So our budget adds additional victims advocates to support survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and other crimes. We also know that evaluating and expanding how we respond to emergencies and to crime will improve our safety outcomes. Our Parks District proposal reestablishes the Park Ranger program, which would reduce the need for police to visit parks. And this budget puts nearly $2 million toward programs to explore and diversify 911 responses. We know that just sending police officers to a scene is not always the right approach. We recognize this. This is how we will begin to build more options. We are working hard to stand up a third public safety department, strategically deployed hand-in-hand with fire, hand-in-hand with police to help community members in their moments of need. Now, this investment will provide critical insight to further inform that effort as we aim to be bold and diversify our approach to public safety. So as we continue to work together to develop a more effective public safety system, I'm proposing returning the parking enforcement officers from SDOT, from the Seattle Department of Transportation, back to SPD. Now, having heard from our employees, the PEOs, and their labor representatives, we understand that our PEOs feel better equipped to do their work from SPD at this time. So we all should recognize that the PEO's office, their space, their human resources, their IT resources, their equipment are all currently still located within SPD. So while we continue our work to reimagine public safety, this may not be our PEO's final home. However, this move will avert nearly $5 million in general fund costs that can be applied towards important community investments. So to ensure a smooth return, our budget includes a transition project manager to make sure we do it right. Now, crucial to public safety is direct involvement by the community. Direct involvement by the community. Our budget adds nearly $4.5 million in community-based solutions focused on safety through our Seattle Community Safety Initiative and $1.5 million for the Regional Peacekeepers Collective, part of a $47 million overall investment in the Human Services Department to support safe communities. This focus on community solutions and a diversified response has only been enhanced by the great work that Councilmember Lisa Herbold has shown in her commitment to see meaningful change and better outcomes. Thank you, Councilmember Herbold, for your leadership here. Violence interrupters, credible messengers in the community leaders who are effective partners in reducing gun violence and diverting crime. Now, while gun violence, we have to admit, has worsened through the pandemic in this city and throughout our country, we cannot make change without these community programs. They help prevent harm before it happens. They connect those who are impacted with the support they need. When it comes to safety and support for victims, we must be impatient. We have to act with a sense of urgency. So we reject the status quo because any extended delay, it has a real human impact on people's lives. This budget makes improved response times and innovation priority number one. Beyond the reactive, safety will come from the proactive, with that recognition that everyone needs housing and education, a good job, and support. In other words, a holistic approach. The City Council has worked in this. We hear you. So our administration will refuse to be complacent on homelessness. I've said repeatedly, I personally believe it's inhumane for people to live without sanitation, without heat, without running water. Walking the streets of Seattle, the need for compassionate and urgent action is obvious. So while the issue of homelessness is too significant for one city to solve on its own, we're committed to the partnerships needed to move this forward. As long as people live in parks and sidewalks and they sleep in tents, they sleep on benches, we cannot sit still. Our budget reflects that urgency, investing in emergency response, shelter, housing, and our partnership with the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. And I want to make that clear. This budget includes funding for ongoing shelter beds and the creation of hundreds more, including tiny homes and safe lots. Our proposal ensures we will meet our 2,000 unit goal and keeps open thousands of shelter units that would otherwise disappear. Further, this proposal increases our investment in the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, funding $88 million in total for outreach, shelter, and other critical programs. This represents a 13% increase in our investment in KCRHA. We are committed to this regional approach and we demand sustained action. We have seen some incredibly impressive early indicators of success during the first year of their work. We realize how hard it is to start a newly formed organization. Now it's time to move beyond early indicators and into permanent improvements. Positive outcomes must be more common, more visible, more sustainable. So our continued funding reflects our commitment to that mission. We're going to do our part, but as we've all said, we cannot do it alone. The RHA is responsible for developing and executing evidence-based strategies. These kind of strategies should address the homelessness in the city of Seattle and King County. Now, other local governments can't sit on the sidelines, and I'm not suggesting they are, but they need to be engaged in these solutions with us. So in this first year, I believe we put in place the right relationships to foster their action and the collaboration. We've worked very intentional on developing their buy-in, so to speak. I look forward to these developing relationships with these outlying cities. We will never succeed without having these types of partnerships and addressing the issue at its foundation, lack of housing. Lack of access to housing is the source of homelessness, and gaining access to housing is a solution. Now that's why our 2023 budget will put forward an unprecedented investment in affordable housing, nearly $250 million. This is the largest one-year investment of this kind in our city's history. This will create hundreds of units of permanently affordable housing and advance affordable home ownership opportunities. It will tackle homelessness and displacement at their root. So by merging investments from our housing levy, our payroll expense tax, and more, we are taking historic action to create places for people to not just get out of the elements, but to become stable and to recover and to thrive. This work is being done in tandem with ongoing investments to make the permitting process more affordable and more swiftly and streamlined. This is important work. Councilmember Dan Strauss, I need to give you a shout out on this work. Your action-oriented eye toward a more affordable Seattle has inspired significant new investments in our Department of Construction and Inspections to reduce the permitting bottlenecks that many have complained of in the housing community. A total of 7 new positions, and thank you for your advocacy, a total of 7 new positions to speed housing production has been added in this budget. I pledged as mayor that we would make parks and playfields and streets and sidewalks accessible to all. So to do so, we created the Unified Care Team, bringing together departments to streamline the processes, to improve the communications among departments, to improve data collection and analysis, to look at where we were duplicating work that was unnecessary. We have worked rapidly to create a more inviting and open city. This is our One Seattle approach to solving, recognizing that we're all in this fight together. So as I've shared before, in mid-2021, we had nearly 100 parks and natural areas managed by the Seattle Parks. They were closed or impacted by unauthorized encampments. So today, 93%, that's nearly 450 parks, are fully open and accessible to the public for their intended use, in large part due to the work that our Unified Care Team is doing. And as when I meet with the Unified Care Team, I say lead with compassion. Lead with an attitude that you must house and treat people the way you would want to be treated. So in this budget proposal, we are expanding the work of the Unified Care Team to address trash cleanup, graffiti removal, other physical improvements to create a more welcoming Seattle. We want a cleaner Seattle, a more vibrant Seattle. We want to activate areas. Now, much of this work had previously been funded by one-time investments from the federal government, but in this budget, we are making that funding ongoing through a $13 million commitment, making clear that a clean city helps us with the road to a safer city. It becomes an inclusive city. We cannot allow the level of service that we're trying to show, we cannot let that level of service lapse. So in seeking the method by which we'll improve the way we work with neighborhoods and those experiencing homelessness, the structure of the Unified Care Team will transition from a citywide focus to a geographically based focus, geographically based teams. What this means is this will allow every neighborhood to receive the attention it deserves. We'll build relationships with community groups, advocates, small businesses, BIAs, neighbors that are housed and unhoused, and work together, those who know their different areas. We'll increase staff capacity by 150% for workers, connecting those experiencing homelessness with a place to go inside, as the Unified Care Team has done with hundreds of shelter referrals this year. So simply put, this localized approach we think will serve everyone better, particularly those who are experiencing homelessness. It will drive a better understanding of communities, it will improve support, and create meaningful connections between members of our Unified Care Team and the neighborhoods that they serve. You know, these budget speeches get a little long, I understand that. My energy is good. I hope everyone else's energy is good. You can't just present a multi-billion-dollar budget and just do it in 5 minutes. But you know what? In a few years, I'm going to try to do that. Thank you for your attention. Because as I said earlier in my remarks, we're trying to redefine this city. So public safety, homelessness action, and a clean city are critical for fostering the conditions that allow for a revitalized Seattle and a local economy, but we have to go beyond that. We as city leaders, we have the power to marshal our resources, to share opportunity, and quite candidly help every person reach their potential. That's a wonderful thing to try to do. So from good jobs to an education, informal or informal, to small business support, to a healthy environment, this is the work we can do by delivering our support and our services. This, too, is our core responsibility as public servants. It's our responsibility, it's our essential responsibility as governmental workers. You know, when I was a young kid, back again in the dinosaur ages, I went to Meany Middle School, as it was known then, and I took woodshop. And I'll tell you, I think I was probably the worst carpenter in the 7th grade. I couldn't do very much, but I wanted to learn. I was smart enough to make sure, a friend of mine, Kenny, the woodshop teacher, would always say, hey, partner up with someone, and Kenny was awesome. I got Kenny, I'd always say. I was able to get an A in the class because I always partnered with Kenny, but I was awful. That was not my gift. Even to this day, if I hang some sheetrock, oh, someone's going to be doing it over. I guarantee you that. And I tell you that story to say that that wasn't my gift. So many people are good with their hands. Some people are good with their minds. Some people are good with their voices. When I talk about education, formal and informal, and we talk about raising everyone's ability to self-optimize, that's the kind of work we want to do as a city, to find everyone's special gifts. The earliest and the most effective investments we can make is through education. So in addition to our levy-funded work to support the Seattle preschool program, the Seattle Promise program, we're working to expand capacity for learning by supporting the educators needed for kids to learn. There's been a lot of talk about essential workers for the last several years, including those attending this speech today. Child care workers are no different. They're indispensable. That's why my budget leverages $5 million in payroll expense tax revenues to support hiring and retention bonuses for Seattle's approximately 4,600 child care workers who serve over 20,000 kids in Seattle. Now, this is a cause that Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda has long championed, and her advocacy for workers and her kids make a huge difference in countless lives. She is inspirational, to say the least, when working with her in this work. Thank you again, Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda. Plus, she is the budget chair. We sort of do what she says. But anyway, not in the notes. It also includes $5 million to support the University of Washington's new Rainier Valley Early Learning Campus, which is in District 2. Now, this exciting partnership with the University of Washington, the state of Washington, King County, and many community-based groups will deliver child care and educate hundreds of kids through the Seattle preschool program. Now, just as important, it will train the next generation of educators, driving an incredible boost of opportunities and skills through workforce development. Now, for our local and small businesses, after several years of pain and pandemic uncertainty, the questions have moved from learning about viruses and vaccines to wondering what's next. What happens when the plywood comes down? What will go up? And I already told you about my experiences with wood, but I can think forward working with the community. Revitalization is more than just recovery. It means giving small businesses the individual level of support they need to be better than before. That's what our budget will fund. We will help immigrant businesses, that immigrant business owner, renovate their shop in the International District. We'll help provide space for that entrepreneur to open their own retail store in Ballard. We'll help the long-term business owner open a new location in the Central District. So we're putting nearly $17 million in the Office of Economic Development to support commercial affordability, to drive small business development, to transform workforce development, and create a Seattle Job Center to help connect our communities with careers and new opportunities. So, Councilmember Sarah Nelson's voice as a small business owner is already helping our Office of Economic Development refine and strengthen this programming, and I can't wait to hear more of the common sense ideas and the approach that Councilmember Nelson will no doubt take to advance our common agenda for local prosperity. Even more critical than the services delivered to our residents is how those services are accessed. We know that working together with business and nonprofits, we can provide better services for our residents. That's why we're developing CiviForum. Now that's described as a one-stop portal to make it easier and faster for people to access essential and discounted city services and other benefits. Now we did this in partnership with Google, and early results show an 85% reduction in the time it takes to fill out an application. So this budget will support putting more programs onto this common application portal so more residents can access them. Access becomes critical. That is because innovation and a focus on the basics, getting people the services that they need. So we in city government, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, we must learn how to operationalize equity, to play big ball, to attack the big tickets on inequity, not small ball, I want to see our city drive tangible improvements in the lives of people living in the city. That's why I'll soon be sharing more details of an equity action plan. That's going to be a new effort at the city to help elevate people, the programs and the projects that are truly meaningful, advancing equitable outcomes for our residents outside the walls of City Hall. Now, as part of that initiative, we are celebrating city employees who embody this work. We're going to call this the Mayor's Equity Award. And today I'm excited to announce the first recipient of the Mayor's Equity Award, Kenya Freedy. Kenya is a supervisor of our PPATCH program at the Department of Neighborhoods, DON, and she represents what we're trying to do when we move the needle in equity. She's used her position to meet Seattleites where they are, outside the walls of City Hall, and deliver equitable change. She's done the hard work of diversifying our PPATCH program, removing the barriers that many had experienced, and working directly with communities of color. Her leadership has made community gardening more inclusive. By the way, gardening is another thing I'm not so good at, but she makes people good at it. She gives them access. She helps expand access to locally grown healthy foods. So Kenya is truly getting her hands dirty, so to speak, creating a more equitable Seattle. So I'm going to ask Kenya to come up, and I'm going to give her this award and embarrass her a little bit. Kenya. She did two. It's one Seattle, not two Seattle.
Thank you.
In my inaugural address, I shared my enthusiasm for making Seattle the healthiest city in the country by connecting our most vulnerable residents with healthcare services and using data to track the indicators that most influence our health. So this budget introduces funding for a pilot for our Healthy Seattle initiative. We'll invest in expanding the Public Health Seattle and King County's Community Health Worker Program. This will mean 1,000 of the most vulnerable residents will have a defined path to care and be able to better navigate our very complicated healthcare system. I want to thank Executive Constantine, who will announce his budget later today, for his leadership in building a coalition for the bold proposal around, and this was yesterday, to advance critically needed behavioral health care in our county, including Seattle. The time is now to bolster proven behavioral health solutions and improve outcomes with added capacity. I look forward to these centers that we will build. And as we continue to watch states around the country react to the Supreme Court's dangerous Dobbs decision, we're also providing $250,000 in ongoing support for the Northwest Abortion Access Fund to ensure just access to reproductive care. All of us, regardless of zip code or where we live or household income, we deserve clean air, fresh water, access to open spaces. Parks and tree canopy are a critical part of that equation, which is also playing a key role in our efforts to fight climate change. So earlier this month, we shared our Parks District budget proposal with the City Council, and I believe later this afternoon they will continue to evaluate it. I want to express my deep gratitude for the leadership and the commitment to Councilmember Andrew Lewis. He's working hard to move the Parks District proposal forward, embracing the reasons it was created and building consensus on a shared approach to keeping our parks clean, open, safe, accessible to all, and fighting climate change. We know Council Member Lewis is committed to the maintenance needed to ensure a world-class park system. And I know the Council, I have an appreciation for the decisions you're trying to make, thoughtful decisions, deliberative decisions. Thank all of you for doing this work. I've said in a few speeches that I wanted to make sure that all of our bathrooms were open and not in a state of disrepair. A simple request. I wanted to grow our youth activities in our parks and our mentorship programs within our centers to be world class. I wanted to lead with a focus on equity and expanding park quantity and quality in underserved neighborhoods. I talked about the difference a good park made in my personal life, and that's what Seattle deserves. And when I say deserves, quite frankly, it's what Seattle demands. This level of care is what is needed to deliver. So at the same time, early data from our canopy, our tree canopy inventory, has revealed that Seattle's canopy has declined over the last several years. This is important in climate change. Most noticeably impacted are trees in our parks and our natural areas. Protecting our trees and expanding Seattle's urban forests is essential. So to increase our tree canopy and reach our goal of 30%, we need a years-long plan and commitment. That's why our budget will invest in a tree equity and resilience plan, increasing tree planting capacity and the greening of industrial properties. This effort will prepare us for even a more ambitious tree planting goals in the future, ensuring that communities with the lowest canopy coverage sees the most support. I know, having worked with Council Member Alex Peterson, how much he values trees and our tree canopy. I look forward to working with him as we build out this plan together. Last week, I signed into law the first set of Green Deal Oversight Board recommendations, which is basically laying the foundation for the One Seattle Climate Justice agenda. And as part of that agenda, in this budget, we're taking the bold action by advancing over $20 million into creating a clean energy economy, good jobs, working to develop resilient communities while we reduce pollution. I want to express my thanks to Councilmember Shama Sawant for uplifting the voices of those who advocate for winning solutions against climate change, the voices who are often not heard. We believe our community-centered approach is receiving international acclaim. We know that from the work that we're doing. that we're going to modernize our city buildings, create resilience hubs, climate resilient spaces for communities during severe weather like smoke, heat, and floods. We're opening up the new green energy economy to all communities, funding pre-apprenticeship scholarships, more workforce development, and small business opportunities. Now we're going to include millions to make our buildings, Seattle buildings, cleaner and greener, and we'll be converting hundreds of dirty air oil heaters to electric heat pumps and developing groundbreaking clean building standards. Now, we know transportation is a huge driver of emissions. We know this from the data. This budget includes efforts to create transit-connected communities and walkable neighborhoods that reduce pollution. It includes investments in heavy-duty fleet electrification and charging stations for our city fleet, including vehicles serviced right here at Charles Street. See, this is a working station. It isn't always as glamorous, as cool, and well, sort of cool, but not always as glamorous. But the work that has to get done is necessary to keep us all moving, to allow us to provide our services. The same goes for our transportation budget. Despite current economic conditions, we're forced and focused on the steps necessary to make Seattle a safe and reliable and affordable place to get around. Now, leading with safety and equity, our transportation budget is focused on Vision Zero priorities and necessary infrastructure and maintenance to support our goal to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries on our streets. We're investing millions toward needed safety investments along the city's high crash corridors, including the Rayner Avenue corridor, as an example. Now, this was rightly a priority of Councilmember Tammy Morales in District 2. Dare I say the best district in Seattle, but I'm not going to say that. Okay, I'm sorry. One Seattle, I'm sorry. What was I thinking of? But it was rightly a priority for Councilmember Morales in her advocacy for the most vulnerable who walk, ride, and roll in our most diverse communities should be lauded. A bold and visionary transportation plan also requires us to think decades ahead. So while the federal government will be investing over $1 trillion in infrastructure across the country through the bipartisan infrastructure law, we are positioning Seattle to compete for those dollars. We're doing a magnificent job working with our delegation and spending time in D.C. making sure we are in line. So as traffic flows once again on the West Seattle Bridge, Councilmember Harrell, as it flows once again, we can't have one Seattle without West Seattle. We're going to make sure that our bridge and our bridge repairs recognize how much we rely on our bridges. So sometimes they do have to say we've got to let boats up and down there, but that's what we have to do because we're also a port maritime city. But in all seriousness, as the largest infrastructure project in our city's history that we're witnessing it right now, the Sound Transit work, the West Seattle Battery Link Extension Project, this is huge. This will move us forward. So our budget reflects the urgency of doing this right. We are proposing hiring a team of engineers and leaders dedicated to this project. So when it comes to, these are generational investments. You know, it's not like there's do-overs on this kind of infrastructure. We have to get it right. So when we invest in sidewalks and bike lanes and transit and freight corridors, is because we know that transportation isn't just about the infrastructure itself, it's about where the infrastructure is taking us. So a few examples. As we fund pedestrian and ADA improvements to sidewalks leading to the Ryther School, we think about the youth who will be able to safely access treatment and services. So I want to thank Council President Deborah Wares for alerting us as to why this specific investment was so needed, a result of her intense community involvement and district level focus. And if you've ever worked with her, I guess you get used to taking orders once in a while. But thank you for your live and D5 advocacy. It's that kind of unique and strong sort of district presence that really gets these things done. And that's why I'm proud to say that about the council that I'm working with. As we create a unique and a bold new waterfront, stretching 2 miles along Elliott Bay, we also envision the trips to the Seattle Center, a new memorial stadium, a revived bumper shoot. And as we build out sound transit, we imagine quick, convenient visits to parks in Ballard and to small businesses in West Seattle. When we talk about building our One Seattle, it's just like the work here at Charles Street. It isn't just about fixing trucks and maintenance and maintaining vehicles. It's about putting our city employees in the best position to do their job, to serve their community. Now, none of your jobs are easy. None of your jobs are easy like mine, I should say. Of course, these are tough jobs. That's what we sign up for. I appreciate it as your mayor. Our residents appreciate it. Our neighbors appreciate it. Our families appreciate it. You have to know at the end of the day you are making a difference every single day. You know, many years ago, again, when I was a kid, I watched my mom and dad, who were city employees, balance the household budget right there at the dinner table. My mother worked in finance at the libraries, and she was pretty good with a pen and a calculator. But I watched them balance what we could afford and what we couldn't afford. That kind of financial discipline and management style and sort of stayed with me my entire life. Now, we don't use a pen and paper anymore, but the values remain the same. We have to prepare for tomorrow. We have to recognize our commitment to equity. We have to be a good steward of tax dollars. They are the public's dollars that they trust us with. Our $1.6 billion general fund budget serves the people, serves our 750,000 residents in our city. And finally, our budget just isn't about spreadsheets and accounting. It's about the services to the people. Now, if you remember anything about this budget speech, and many of you sat through many budget speeches, I know I have, I want you to remember that it is a recommitment to the higher value of public service, serving the people of Seattle. And we say proudly and pridefully, we serve our people in Seattle with excellence. You know, for those who've known me, and Mildred's known me for, I don't know, many, many decades, I've always been the eternal optimist. The water's always half full. I believe that the best days in Seattle are in front of us. I know that. I know that for a fact. I know that this vision can only be realized through teamwork of our community. So we as public servants, all of us as public servants, as community leaders, as elected leaders, we have the standing, we have the position, we have the power, and we have the heart, we have the intellect to inspire our community to move forward. I certainly cannot do it alone. Even by demonstrating your patience, listening to this speech demonstrates your commitment to One Seattle. This is a moral document. There are other moral documents out there that you will find strength from. There might be a song you find strength from. There might be someone you love and respect you find strength from. So hold on to that. I'm going to hold on to this budget in the meantime because this is a document that will help us succeed in this city and to truly build One Seattle. Thank you very much.